Yeah, so a couple of minutes ago, we heard from Debra Knight, who was one of our panelists today, and she's the founder of 9 Red Presents. So it's an organisation that champions survivors' voices, and this is through blogs, through poetry, and it allows them to share the raw emotions that they face, the things that they're going through and when they're rebuilding from domestic abuse, sexual assault, and other crimes. So right now, let's hear from some of what she shared when it comes to creatively healing and breaking down barriers.
So as a result of being a victim, I wrote poetry. When people wanted to know how I was able to heal and recover and how I was able to not be what the stereotype was of victims at that time, and I said I use poetry, and I then had to go on a very long journey of proving how poetry and art and these creative pursuits are another way to cry, another way to process, another way to understand, another way to know who you authentically are and not who people tell you are. And I also wanted to break down barriers of labels, because I was being labelled as a victim, but I was also labelled in other ways as well. And every single label was another box that was being put around me, and I wanted to be not inside that box, and I didn't see why I needed to be. And if I could help other people, and other people were on the same wavelength as me, and I helped other victims, and as a result of helping other victims in the way that we knew we needed to be healed, not the ways that other people told us. Yeah. Because I fell through the gap and I can feel other people's pain. That's what makes me want to heal them.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so when they came to me and they were falling through the gap and I understood what it was like to fall through the gap,
yeah,
I created a project to catch them.
Yeah.
And so literally 9 Red is just a process of creating projects to catch individuals that are falling.
Okay, I'm Debra Knight, and that was the audio from the 50 from the Life Hacks panel. And the reason why I chose to play that is because what I wanted was to have an authentic, in the moment description of what I do, why I do it, and how I do it. And I felt that that was probably the most appropriate way of being able to introduce that to you. Before I begin, and I don't mean this to be offensive to anybody, but before I begin, I do have a polite request. If there is, in the future, any occasion that you need to speak about this presentation or this person, please may I request that you do not describe me as passionate. I am a survivor of trauma. I have done the inner work. I do not have emotional issues. I am not emotional or passionate. What I am is an artist, and as that, I'm expressive. And to show you how expressive I am, I'm going to perform for you a poem called Evolution or Evolution. You pick the title, however you prefer. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
On a dusk-coloured eve for the dawn of the century, if you look into my eyes, you can see the whole of history. I bear the scars of a bygone age, caught in the raptures of mankind's rage. I carry the blood of all Earth's nations, the history of humans since the dawn of creation, their memories in my heart and their blood in my veins, the history in my mind and in my soul. I know their names. I'm made accidentally beautiful by the blending of civilizations, the binding of cultures, and the union of nations. On the crown of my head, I wear Saharan canos, designed by African elders, a forgotten song. All life grows in my belly and is nurtured at our breast. We shape our children's futures in the ways that our mothers know best. If you look to my hands, although lastingly lovely, you can still see the toil that was passed down onto me. If you look to my body, so feminine and lovely, yet strong and firm from the time I spent in slavery. I have a gentle smile with grace and wisdom to encourage the growth of the dying nation. And if you listen to my voice, even though I do speak softly, you can hear 1,000 years rage swirling around inside me. In the structures of my cheeks, you can trace the whole of history. I am a living language, written in beauty and adorned in truth. If you want to know my side, I will let you feel each passing century, each evolution of life, as you touch the place where history has touched me. Thank you very much. And this is kind of hard to describe because this is our venue, but we no longer have our venue because of whatever reason. And I'm going to come to that in a minute, but first I'm going to explain this, right? As a general rule, it's not perceived that the black civilization has anything to communicate, that there is anything that people can learn from us. And the one thing that I can say that can be learned from all the black civilizations is forgiveness. And that is something that we need now more than any time. Our elders, our parents, our grandparents, they teach us the power of forgiveness. This is what we learn daily, every day. This is something that we have to teach, even if you do not wish to accept anything else about our civilizations. We've had 2,000 years of the destruction of our civilization, and yet every day we wake up and we forgive. The Sunton Square Garden was 45 square metres of grass, the only community space left in Sunton Park. That's all we were given. And from that 45 square metres of grass, we created a project, we created a garden, we created a space where people could come and access services where there were no services. And now we've been told to secure our property because the green fence is coming down it whenever they wish. What I want to say is that we as civilization, that is a peaceful civilization. We've always been a peaceful civilization. The missionaries came and they stole our land whilst teaching us to forgive. When you come to an African country, the entire continent, and you take our land, and when you go to the Caribbean and you take our land, and when we were invited here as skilled professionals to help rebuild, and you won't even provide us with a space to stand in, how do you think that feels? Europe has all of the land on the whole of this planet, and it controls it. And for this reason, we have no space. We have to beg for space. So I'm going to talk to you now about our projects. Radiant Roots, this is still a project that we're delivering. We will come to you. It basically uses light, colour, sound, crystal and aromatherapy. And I know that these are practices that are starting to become popular now, but these are ancient traditions, and if you understood how the pyramids were built, you would understand how well these work in terms of healing. The other 33 is a project specifically designed for the 33 Caribbean islands. The 1980s definition of black identity excludes 87 countries. 33 Caribbean islands and 54 African countries are all expected to have one identity and one culture, and that England alone has its various subcultures. How would 87 countries have one black identity? Be Heard is the project that we're doing with the police, which is specifically for victims of domestic and sexual violence, and it is focused at women of colour because we have issues such as racist sexism and sexist racism that we need to deal with, that other cultures cannot understand in the way that it impacts us and what it does to us. So this is specifically for BAME women who are experiencing sexual racism or racist sexism in terms of dealing with their victimhood, survivorship or thriving. We no longer have the garden. Nature's Way is a project that is specifically about Caribbean healthy eating, hair and identity. It is about using organic, natural materials and is self-sustainable. The Caribbean community was always an island that left no trace of it, and we are bringing this design into, or Sharon I should say, because this is Sharon's project, how we can use natural things that can emphasise. You should not put anything on your skin or your hair that you cannot put on in your mouth, and that's basically what this project is, and it's packaged in a sustainable way. Grace Health and Wellbeing, he does a whole range of different talks and different things, but he does no hands massage, which is a very big way of getting people into a very deep meditative state, which enables us to do counselling with them from a place where they are able to open up without fear and pain. They have deeply relaxed in the theatre brainwave. It's the same as what the colouring and the light therapy does as well. So this happened in the garden. There was a sewing circle, knitting, etc. You know, those kinds of crafts, and it was combined with gardening club, and then we also had a writing circle that occurred. And Queendom, again, this is about demystifying the female, and has a lot to do with, I'm going to come into a little bit later on, about how women are perceived in our society. And again, it just talks about sexual racism, which is a specific form of racial prejudice enacted in the context of sex and romance. And for that reason why it's an MVAWG project. And the women's listening circles that you're all aware of. I would just like to mention, with WOSIP, we also have a project called Squash It, which is delivered in Cambridgeshire, Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire, which is for young females to use. It's called Squash It. We use squash to help them raise their self-esteem. It's about what you learn from squash, and also because people don't associate black people with squash, I wanted to make sure that people know that we do all sports. Okay, so this here is the project that we're currently working on. And so within my role as poetry champion for Bedfordshire, I've created a project called Bedfordshire Together. I can't scroll down. Sorry. So I created a project called Bedfordshire Together, and we'd like to invite you to take part in it. The project aims to bring communities together through the power of poetry and walking, and is part of the Bedfordshire Poetry Together campaign. Poetry Together is the brainchild of author, broadcaster and poetry fanatic Giles Branbury, and is supported by Her Majesty the Queen Camilla. There is a link on the screen. If you go to that link, Giles will tell you all about why this project exists and everything to do with that. Bedfordshire Together arose out of the 2023 Poetry Together campaign, which ran in autumn of 2023. In it, we demonstrated the simplest way to promote poetry is to use existing projects, networks and collaborations and bring them all together. By collaborating with various organisations and... Oh dear, how do I go back? Sorry, it's not doing that thing. I'm so sorry. Yeah, just go on. Yeah, it just clicked onto the left.
Keep it up.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Was using existing projects and collaborations and bringing them all together by collaborating with various organisations and services throughout Bedfordshire. We produced a high quality event that highlighted the fact that despite our differences, we are many voices singing one song, and that song is the song of Bedfordshire. The therapeutic benefits of walking, talking and creating are well documented, and we can use this project to create togetherness across generations, cultures, traditions, mindsets, realms and ideals, to create poetry that's transformative for people, places and spaces. We believe that by walking together, talking together and creating together, we can build trust, promote dialogue between diverse groups and serve as a wellbeing activity that encourages individuals to converse. If you would like any more information, please email female, F-E-M-A-I-L, because we all know that behind any strong male is a strong female, at art_.co.uk. So, I'm going to sit because I'm a little nervous and I'm just going to be honest about that, so that's why I'm sitting. This next section is going to make sense when you reach to the end. Everything I've just explained about 9 Red and why we exist is the official narrative of... I've done it again. How does it... It's alright, I've done it. Okay. Everything I've just explained about NRP and why we exist is the official narrative of our company. Are co-created by myself and Gordon Davies. His reasons and mine for collaborating will be very completely different. If you visit Wardown House Museum Gallery right now, you will see the roulette cards on which the concept of 9 Red was written and created. They are part of the 50 Objects exhibition that launched on the 15th of May, and they tell my story. However, they do not tell my story of why I created 9 Red. Everyone knows that I am a victim, and I have that victim label, and those labels black and female, and they imagine that has something to do with it. But these labels, black, female, victim, what do they mean? They are adjectives, describing words, but what do they really describe about the person who's sitting here in front of you? One of the advantages of racism is that it forces you to take a good, long, hard look at your culture. It prompts a genuine and sincere reflection on your history, heritage and traditions, and on who you are, especially when you are openly and routinely mocked and dismissed. Eventually, this introspection turns outwards, prompting a closer examination of the Western story that is considered superior to mine. My history and my heritage are often viewed as primitive and barbaric, leading to negative labels that impact our behaviours, attitudes and mindsets. We all agree there is a need for greater cultural understanding in order to better serve others. We implement equality and diversity training to help us understand cultures and mindsets so that we can provide support and help individuals to navigate life. However, this is always applied to others, to someone that looks like me. But to me, you are the other. So as you ascribe meaning and value to me through the filter of other, I'm entitled to do the same. In Western religions, God is everything and God is a man. How can God be everything and also be a man? Those of you who know me are aware that I have an emotional support snake. I understand it may be difficult for some people to grasp this concept, but when I explain, they usually understand. This story was left behind by the missionaries on my island and on many other islands in the Caribbean. Many of the English colonised islands were left with the legacy that revolved around God, the Queen, British middle-class education and values. These ideals were forcefully instilled in us with the aim of creating a more valuable commodity in their breeding farms, essentially producing designer slaves to order, much like they do today with exotic pets and designer dogs. Zion, my spiderball python, is a rescue. The spiderball python is a morph that does not occur in nature. They have a beautiful pattern resembling cobwebs, hence the name. They possess a calm and gentle personality and a cute little head dab. However, all these traits are side effects of a condition called inclusive body disease. The disease is characterised by the formation of endocytoplasmic inclusions in neurons and epithelial cells of various organs. Everything that makes her unique is a result of the brain damage caused by creating the morph. In the beginning, she struggled to feed because her strike was affected by IBD. I had to use my arm as a lock on target and flick the food into her part as she striked, so she could get the mouse and not me. Zion did not ask to be born or created as a morph. Humans created her, and humans should be responsible for her care. We did not ask to be taken out of Africa and enslaved. We did not ask for our histories, legacies, and advanced ancient civilizations to be destroyed and removed from history. Western human beings did that, and Western human beings should be restoring the balance and allowing our truths back into mainstream society. We have to recognise ourselves as the result of the past and the stories that we tell each other and ourselves. Like when God approached Adam in the Garden of Eden and said, "Man, hast thou eaten of the fruit of the tree whereof I told thee thou shouldst not eat?" And Adam said, "This woman thou gavest me, she tempted me, and I did eat." Then God looked at Eve and said, "Hast thou eaten of the fruit of the tree whereof I told thee thou shouldst not eat?" And she said, "The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat." Then God, out of the corner of his eye, looked at the serpent, and the serpent said nothing. They both ate the fruit and were both tempted. Adam is forgiven because he was tempted, while Eve and the serpent get all of the blame. This is a contributing factor to why rape culture exists in our society. We currently live in a global civilization that is always passing the blame without taking responsibility for the part we play. We need to take into account that the past is created by the present, and we can change the story at any time we wish. The demonization of Eve is a Western and not a global concept. Eve, by many names and in many cultures, is celebrated as the bringer of knowledge to humanity, and the serpent is seen as an angel in disguise. This may be hard for Western minds to comprehend, but in the Kemetic tradition, the snake is a symbol of resurrection, with its partner the frog, a symbol of metamorphosis. Deep understanding and learning of other cultural viewpoints shed light on our own. If you have conversations with detransitioners, they highlight the flaws in the thinking in our society and where those thoughts originate from. Can you help me? It's always easier when you have your own laptop. Thank you very much. Mary Margaret Olahan wrote the book Detrans based on the research conducted by Lisa Littman. No, I'm in the wrong place, it won't. Sorry, it's just clicking through. I can't click it.
Right, it's difficult.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mary Margaret Olahan wrote the book Detrans based on the research conducted by Lisa Littman. The young woman that spoke, it's in the box, but it's still. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The young woman that she spoke to talked about their negative experience with members of the opposite sex. They expressed a desire to escape their bodies because they'd been sexually assaulted or harassed and were uncomfortable with the male attention they were receiving. These women highlighted how their concerns about how men were treating them were used by doctors to justify their decision into becoming men themselves. Young girls in our society are exposed to social media at a very young age and are seeing highly sexualised depictions of women on social media. They are also exposed to pornography at a young age. They are seeing women humiliated and degraded in pornography, and then they are seeing unattainable images of womanhood on social media. This leads to two thought streams. I don't know how to be like those women on social media. I don't have the clothes, looks or body. And I am scared to become a woman in pornography because they do not look like they're being treated very well. Combine this with the fact that a lot of these girls are experiencing some kind of assault or mistreatment at the hands of men. Is there any wonder why these girls are scared to be women and want to get out of this body? One of the girls in the book was raped, and the thought of being raped again was so terrifying to her that she wanted to get out of her body. She also had a miscarriage from that rape and thought that her body had failed her in this way. It made her reject the idea of being a woman. I think her situation points to a larger crisis in our culture of masculinity and femininity. We villainise both of these things when we should be encouraging healthy masculinity and healthy femininity and showing good representations of them. This is needed now. So I don't know how many of you know about this story. Does anybody know about this? Anybody been following it on the internet? Okay, if you know, I'm a little late to this, but clearly I'm not alone. I have to be honest, I have been enjoying a lot of the conversations surrounding this topic. For those of you that don't know, there has been an ongoing argument that's been going on the internet. So it didn't start on the internet, it started in the real world. It started offline. I think it was then picked up by TikTok, and from TikTok it has then spread all over the internet. The question that these women were asked was, would you rather spend the night alone in the forest with a bear or a random man? And the results were alarmingly surprising. I can't remember the statistics, but an alarmingly high number of women picked bear. As a result of women picking bear and it going on the internet, some men got very, very angry at the fact that women were saying that they would rather stay with a bear. And in response, they said things like, "Are you stupid? Why would you want to stay in the woods with a bear, you stupid bee?" These comments, they were not realising, was needing to demonstrate the exact reason why women had picked bear. So this sparked a whole host of conversations, and there were lots of interesting comments made, and the women had to therefore defend the reason why they picked bear. So, just as justified, the women said things like, the worst thing a bear is going to do to you is either attack or leave you alone. But the worst a man can do to you is much, much worse, and many, many more things. That alone is a very strong statement. However, the most powerful response that smashes all other responses is simply this. At least if I got attacked by a bear, people would believe me. Considering what I mentioned earlier, it is important to recognise that the present shapes the past, and we can use this moment as a starting point to move forwards. Where does our society go from here? What should be our next steps? What do we say when we are faced with the terrifying, yet sad, very sad truth that if someone was attacked by a bear and sought help from you, you wouldn't respond by saying, "What were you wearing?" You wouldn't ask if there was a misunderstanding between yourself and the bear. You wouldn't say, "Did you say no?" or fight back. You wouldn't say, "Maybe the bear thought you wanted it to attack you." You wouldn't ask, "Why were you at the bear's house?" You wouldn't say, "Were you socialising with the bear and maybe had a little bit too much to drink?" People wouldn't ask, "Do you date a lot of bears?" It's important to pay attention to what these women are saying. They are expressing that they would rather be alone with a bear than a random man because a bear is predictable. It will either attack or not attack. On the other hand, men's behaviour can be unpredictable, leading women to feel unsafe. Just as racism requires introspection, sexism does too. Women have reflected and considered that maybe the issue isn't with them, but with men. They would rather risk their lives with a bear than be left alone with a random man. Instead of responding with aggression, did any of those men take time for introspection and understand why women feel that way? How many of those men have taken a moment to question what it is about men's behaviour that makes women feel safer with a bear? I have a few minutes left, so I have to wrap up, and I'm going to wrap up by saying this. I was late to the bear being man the internet story. I follow Josh Johnson, he's a comedian on YouTube, and I found this story through him. Throughout my life, I've always been the object of someone else's narrative, and for this is the reason that I do not do social media. You know what it's like? You're either somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, somebody's wife, or somebody's strife. I was Councillor Knight's daughter and the Knight boy's sister, and then I was the mayor's daughter. I'm currently the victim, a girl that's gone from being a victim to a Queen's Award winner. And I'm still being used as the object in other people's stories. Sometimes I've had to allow myself to be used in this way, so that I can raise awareness of certain issues. Over the past 21 years, I've earned my stripes. I've allowed my face, my name and my story to be used and exploited for the purposes of creating change. I've allowed myself to be vulnerable and exposed so that all women will be safer. So I'm going to ask you to be as authentic and sincere with me as I have been with you. I'm going to ask you a question, but I am going to be fair to you and give you a chance to give a real answer, a real honest answer. Because all the women in the room know that the question in the survey they were asked and the question they were answering was not the same. The question they were actually answering is, knowing that a bear will do one of two things, attack or not attack, and knowing that a worse a man can do, then can be worse than death, and can be absolutely anything, especially when the chances are that he knows he will get away with it. Knowing that under those circumstances, he will do absolutely anything he wants to you, wouldn't you pick bear? When you are being beaten and raped multiple times a day, with the added mental and emotional rape that goes along with that, in a society that is mentally and emotionally raping you every day, and support only from statutory services whose policies, procedures and mindsets feel like emotional and mental rape, then you are offered the opportunity to have a night away from all of that, to be alone in the woods. The caveat is, you must be with a